I was pushed backwards, and my foot caught the stair behind me, and my chin hit the handrail, and then at that point I had blacked out, but the back of my head clipped the concrete stairs behind me.
In Iraq, we expected armed violence because we were in a war zone, but nothing in my experience in the Army or as a law enforcement officer prepared me for what we confronted on January 6th.
They beat me. I was struck with a taser device at the base of my skull numerous times. And they continued to do so until I yelled out that I have kids.
Hi again, everyone. It's now 5 o'clock in New York. No matter how many times you hear the first-hand testimonies of this day, no matter how many times I watch it, the part that you can't get your brain around is the duration of the utter brutality endured by law enforcement, the men and women of law enforcement on January 6th. It should still horrify and stop anyone in their tracks, make us put down our phones and think about what it was like for Trump supporters to beat over and over again the people they now claim to be aligned with in heinous ways, ways that the law enforcement officials described as medieval. Of course, Trump supporters were fueled by the lies Donald Trump told them about the 2020 election being stolen from him. The violence is still nearly unimaginable for most Americans because even though we witnessed it, we know what an angry mob of Trump supporters did, but they're still capable of. Trump has sought to rewrite that with the help of his Republican enablers. And thanks to the rule of law, many of those who committed the most heinous crimes against law enforcement officials are facing consequences, legal consequences. A new report in Just Security takes stock of where many of those violent rioters are right now, looking specifically at individuals being held in the D.C. Department of Corrections. As of last week, D.C. had 29 January 6 inmates in custody, including defendants who are either awaiting trial or post-conviction. Of that number, all but 2 have been charged with assaulting law enforcement officers in the United States Capitol or on its grounds. 19 of the 27 have already been convicted at trials or have pleaded guilty. Quote, one inmate allegedly threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers, causing some of the officers to temporarily lose their hearing. Other January 6 inmates held in D.C. include ones who viciously ripped off a Metropolitan Police Department officer's mask, assaulted officers with an electroshock device, allegedly sprayed multiple police officers with a pepper spray, struck an MPD officer with a long wooden pole multiple times, and allegedly used a crutch and a metal pole as bludgeoning weapons or projectiles against a line of law enforcement officers. Still others assaulted officers with their fists, stolen riot shields, makeshift weapons, or in other ways. We run through that partial list of the physical assaults because it is those specific criminals that Trump is talking about when he talks about wrongly imprisoned hostages, that's what he calls them. He has promised us that as president, if he's reelected, first thing he's going to do is free them. It is front and center in his campaign, and he's pushing it more and more prominently. He even promoted a vigil being held for those inmates, those specific inmates of the D.C. Department of Corrections. Washington Post noted that since January, Trump has made references to January 6 hostages more frequently at his rallies, mentioning the term so far at every rally in March. That's where we start the hour with former Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn. He's now running for Congress in Maryland on the platform of protecting our democracy. It's so nice to see you, my friend.
Hey, Nicole.
You know, I keep thinking of moments seared in our conscience. And I think one of the things we have trouble with is numbers. And I think of the murder of George Floyd. And one of the most compelling things I saw was Dave Chappelle take the time that it took that officer to murder him. And just sitting in that time was so horrible. And sometimes it's the time, right? The time that an attack goes on. Can you just remind us how long law enforcement officials were under attack from Trump supporters on January 6th? How many hours?
Over 3 hours, Nicole. And speaking of time, I have to take this time to acknowledge my former co-worker, Officer Billy Evans, who 3 years ago today was killed at the Capitol, protecting the Capitol, 3 months after what we went through on January 6th. And one thing that stands out in that article that you just led with, how many times the word allegedly was used. We watched it on tape. It's nothing allegedly about it. Everybody in America saw what happened. And also the individuals who pled guilty to their crimes, it was no allegedly about it. That just stuck out with me. But over 3 hours, we were begging, the people in charge of the radios were begging for help. And officers were just fighting for their lives, just trying to make it home to their loved ones at the end of the day.
Can you imagine any other group of criminals who would have 3 hours to, quote, beat and attack the people they claim to support, to use flagpoles, to use pepper spray, to use shields, to use spears and, quote, electroshock devices? Would anyone else get 3 hours to do that?
Yeah, no. Let's just be honest. I mean, there were reports about Donald Trump, and he didn't call it off because he enjoyed what was happening. And that leads to the point that you made about him promising to free them, so to speak. And the idea about him freeing people who pled guilty is letting them know that, hey, you guys didn't do anything wrong, even though they said that they did something wrong by pleading guilty to their charges, to the crimes that they were charged with. It's repulsive, it's reprehensible, it's disrespectful, which is perfect because it's right on track for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, and it's the audacity. I wanted to talk to you last week. We covered the statement put out by Officer Sicknick's family. I think it was his father and his brother who spoke out about the fact that, in their view, Officer Brian Sicknick is dead because of Donald Trump, and that every officer who dies leaves behind family and colleagues who are heartbroken, and that community has a gaping hole in it. And every family is free to grieve however they want. But Donald Trump claiming that he stands with law enforcement is a farce. How do we make sure that the Sicknick's voice is heard by voters?
We continue to call it out and speak against it. I'm really glad that, along with several other officers, Sergeant Gunnell, Michael Fanone, Danny Hodges, myself, are still continuing to speak out against it, even 3 years later. It's so easy to get tired of it or just dismissed. Hey, all right, this is enough. We moved on. No, absolutely not. Never forget. We're not letting this go away. So I'm very encouraged by the Sicknick family continuing to speak up. Because like you said, it was more than just a police officer. That's somebody's loved one. It was a son. It was a brother. We need to continue to fight for the memory of those individuals because it can happen again.
Well, how do you, as someone who comes from law enforcement, square the sort of willful turning away from Trump's? I mean, Trump let his supporters, directed his supporters to the Capitol to, let me just quote what they did, and this is language from their own legal processes. They bludgeoned, they beat, they smashed law enforcement officials for 3 hours. Nobody used their weapons. I think Officer Fanone testified that he thought it would just become a bloodbath if he did that. So they had 3 hours to physically beat law enforcement officials, to desecrate the United States Capitol. And yet lots of people, including in law enforcement, think Trump is a better choice than Biden for president. How do you start to open up that which is so calcified and predicated on lies?
Well, you use the term a lot, Earth One, and a lot of those people are not on it. So we have to focus on the people that we can focus on. Anybody, that's why I keep sticking with the word allegedly. We saw what we saw. And anybody who sees that, what they saw on January 6th, and has the rational or the logical mind to go ahead and support Donald Trump, and not only just support him, but give him a pass for what he did or what he did not do that day. Anybody that's associated with that, they're already gone and they're not on Earth One, as you say often.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.